So today we're back with Amanda Tainter in exploring the world of AI, hacking assignments for the AI era. And she helped me with this because as a writing instructor, I am starting to see more and more of my students get online, plug in the assignment, and give me something that's clearly ChatGPT or something. And so I said, help me, what can I do to make my assignments better so they'll more likely write their own assignments. So I am going to hand it over to you, Amanda.
Okay, thank you. And this is going to be a session on suggestions, ways to approach assignments, a couple of different categories of assignments. It's most certainly not going to be a comprehensive list of here's everything to solve your AI problem, and we're going to talk about why that's really impossible. I said it in the last session, but I also want to make sure it's always clear. All of the prompts and all of the suggestion are literally coming verbatim, word for word out of this book. And I turn my camera off so I can't find making sure I'm showing it real good. Anyway, I don't know if you can see it. I've lost my camera. Oh, here we go. So Teaching with AI. Again, every example comes straight out of that book. So I just want to make sure and give them credit where credit is due. Highly, highly recommend it. Again, I did the last session as well, but there's so much more information that comes in it. So everything is not from my own brain. It is all from them because I was able to learn so much podcasts from them and then the book. Okay, so let's get on with it and talk about exploring the world of AI, hacking assignments for an era of AI. So when we think about assessments and we look at the way it's always been, our traditional assessments typically, and not for every instructor, so I am very cognizant of not being stereotypical, but most of the time our assessments focused on the right answers, memorizing what the terminology was or the processes or what a thesis statement was. And in that very traditional assessment format, there isn't a lot of room for creativity or critical thinking. And ironically enough, we're going to look at this as we progress through the presentation. This is one of the key skills that employers wanted. And so if that's a positive way for you to look forward to the future, then I encourage you to think of it in that context, that this is going to push us to that more creative thinking in our assessments and help support our students in that as well. So what is AI enhanced learning that we're in this right now? We're going to talk about the integration of AI tools in education. And for those of you that came in here thinking, okay, I want to know a way to forbid my students from using AI, that's not what this is going to be about, because it is here. And so we're going to talk about how to integrate it in appropriately and ethically into what you do in ways that you want it to be, and the new approaches to our assessments. To make our assessments future ready, we do need to have this focus on that critical thinking. Again, time and time and time again, business industry is saying our graduates are coming out of our schools without the ability to think critically. I think this is such a great opportunity to leverage AI in that capacity. If we can find a way to recreate and reimagine our assessments to do just that, we will be an integral part in preparing our students for an AI-driven world, because this is here to stay. Businesses are using it, and they are going to be required their students to be competent and capable to access AI and leverage it to make the most efficient products that they possibly can. So I loved this when it was a title slide recommended to me by AI. And here also where's the critical thinking. It actually had it flip-flopped. So it said, sell the cookie, not the recipe. And that's not what I wanted. So again, using it to create that basis to help us be more efficient, but our critical thinking is saying, that's not what I want to say. So we want to sell the recipe, not the cookie. And what that means is we want to focus on the process and not the product. And before we focused a lot on the product. So when we're creating our assessments, and I want to take some time to really lay out, I'm the outcomes coordinator at Reedley, so I'm going to have to talk about how to create great assessments before we even talk about AI. Before we even talk about the integration of AI, we want to make sure that we look at our assessments for some very core and key features in doing that. So when we design our assessment, a crucial factor is to focus on the purpose, not just the mechanics. We want to create that connection between our broader learning objectives, our broader student learning outcomes, and those real world applications. I don't care what field or discipline that you're teaching in, there is real world applications in what they're learning. Otherwise, it truly is non-important for them to learn what they're going to learn. You can always connect it to a real world application. And by the way, AI is a great tool to help you think creatively and how it might connect. We want to create assessments that are engaging. We want to design them so that they captivate our students' interest. And this is, again, we talked about this yesterday, where we can help expand our creative thinking to find ways to engage students in meaningful ways to help access that creative side on creating those assessments. So we do want them to be engaging. We want to have successful criteria. And this is where those rubrics are our expectations for students are so clear. And the AAC&U value added rubrics is a great resource. If you've never been on their website, it actually has a whole lot of really fantastic supports for teaching. And they've got this great rubric about critical thinking and all of those, what we used to term soft skills, but really those necessary skills to add to ours. So let me see if I can copy the link and just plop it in the chat real quick before I forget, because I forgot to send it to Lori. Nope, that's not it. That's for this. So I'll send it out, but you can just Google AAC&U value rubrics. It's a really great tool to have. In our assessments, we want to encourage that value-driven learning. So focus on the intrinsic value of the learning process. This is also one of the reasons why I've shifted to a standard skill-based grading and really infuse a lot of equity-based grading principles in, because we don't want our focus to be on the cookie. We don't want our focus to be on the product. We don't want the focus to be on the grade. We want our focus as instructors to be on the process. And this really, again, I'm going to say it so many times during this presentation, this is where AI is going to force us as instructors to think about how our assessments have to do that, to focus on that process, to get students into that higher level thinking skills that we have on that Bloom's taxonomy. So what are some of the motivators in our assessment design? We talked a lot about this on the other slide, but it's thinking about the purpose, articulating why those assignments matter, connecting it to those learning objectives, real world application. Being clear about our task. We discussed this yesterday as well, so listen to the recording, but break down that assignment into very clear and concise steps. And this is where AI can help you to form those very clear steps. Ask it, what am I missing in this assignment? You want to create an assessment that has the very clearly outlined tasks for your students, and AI is fantastic. This is one of the new things that I had thought about, and I do it on this is what to submit on my assignments, but create a ready to submit checklist where students can go through just very quickly. Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? It's also a way that they can use AI to have them look at their assignments and say, here's my assignment, here's my ready to submit checklist, what am I missing? And from an instructor grading perspective, that makes it so much more fun to grade my assessments when I know that students have a complete assignment versus me having to go in and say, it's missing this, it's missing this. So that ready to submit checklist is a great tool to include in your assignment creation. And it's not something that has to add a ton to your workload as well. Ask AI to create that for you. Here is my assignment. Create for me a ready to submit checklist. Download that document and you have it. And I forgot to, before we started, if you have any questions, put them in a chat. Lori is fantastic about moderating. Or go ahead and chime in and interrupt me. It's absolutely fine. I'd love for this to be interactive. So if you have any questions or suggestions, other tools to utilize in any of the resources that we're talking about, please add them. So in this AI age that we're about to embark in, what are some of the essential skills that we need to think about in our courses, in our assessments? And no matter what your feeling is on AI, you cannot help but notice it is going to change how we teach. It just has to. So what are some of those skills that we really need to think about incorporating into our curriculum? We don't need to deviate from our discipline. We are discipline experts, and this is what we've been hired to teach. But how do we incorporate these skills that are going to be necessary for students to be successful in the world that is unfolding in front of us? So critical thinking, again, I'm going to say it, I don't even know how many times in this, but critical thinking, and that's where our assessments are going to have to really land heavily, is how do I create this in a context of forcing critical thinking for my students. So we want to help develop the ability to analyze, evaluate, and synthesize information. And we all know from our Bloom's taxonomy, that's a higher order of thinking. That is super hard to do. So how is our assessments going to help guide students to that step, or that tier that we really want them to be at, and that the future jobs that they're going to occupy is really going to mandate that level of thinking. We also want to create in them these creative problem solving. It's not just about problem solving, but it's be able to problem solve in new ways. And this is where, like we talked about yesterday, if you were here, AI can really help us and our students to think about problems in a new way and to brainstorm and find creative solutions to problems that we face, or we don't even know the problems that we're going to face. So it's a great tool for that ideation and solution. And then also for that collaboration, fostering that ability so that we can work together, not just with human peers, but also that collaboration between AI. We want to help our students to find a way to ethically and critically utilize AI to help scaffold them to create, to make it to that higher order thinking that we're talking about. And then also AI literacy, to understand the incredible capabilities that AI has, but also where the limitations are and where us as humans need to come in and apply that critical thinking that we've been enforcing and talking about, and those ethical considerations into that collaboration that they are having with AI. Just like we talked about that cookie and the recipe analysis, we're going to be on our assessments and how we teach, focusing so much more heavily on the process over the product. And this is why we have to shift that emphasis from how many points do I need to get an A or pass the class, to what is happening in the process of getting to the end of that class. But that's going to be a huge conversation that needs to happen in our course with our students, with our colleagues, is collectively, how do we shift the conversation away from, I just need to pass this class, what are the points that I need to get to pass the class, to what is the learning that's taking place, and how we as instructors can really help to facilitate and support that emphasis on it is the process of learning, not the product. Or is there a question? I see that here.
Yeah. How do we overcome the AI is always right syndrome? E.g., novice learners in physics can't identify the errors that ChatGPT makes and perpetuate those mistakes, similar to, but Google says that I get sometimes identifying the limitations can be very difficult for a novice.
Yep, absolutely. And that's actually some of the things that we're going to talk about when we get to the assignment creation, is how to guide that critical thinking, because you are 100% exactly right. That critical thinking is a very advanced skill. So how in our assessments can we support that? So we're going to brainstorm a couple of ways that might help scaffold that thinking for our students in our assessments. In physics, I have some suggestions for the sciences as well, and we can brainstorm together how we can do that as well towards the end of the presentation. So process over product, we're going to be talking about encouraging students to explore the different AI tools and techniques that are out there. ChatGPT is everybody's go-to. It's my go-to. But even yesterday when I said, all right, I want to find a different way to create a fun slideshow, had a conversation with ChatGPT about what are some free slideshow creators that I can use on the web. And I found Gamma, and I've been playing with it yesterday and today, and it was fun. And that's how we can foster the curiosity and discovery. And I was able to learn some new things about creating presentations just in my interaction with the AI, the things it suggested for me, the things that I had to suggest to it. So you want to foster that curiosity and that exploration, because again, those are going to be the skills that that students need to be successful, no matter what industry that they're going to go in. That desire to explore and be curious is going to be imperative for later success. Critical analysis. We want to guide students in our assessments to critically evaluate the AI-generated content to say, am I discerning that this is correct or not correct? And emphasizing that we have to have that base knowledge in our industry and our discipline in order to do that. And that's where the heavy lifting is going to come from us for instructors, is instilling our passion for that discipline, for them to understand that that base level understanding is going to be so imperative to have that critical discernment for what AI produces. Reflection. We want to enable students and give them space and time to reflect on how AI supports and challenges their learning. If we just have a blanket, don't use it, we're not providing them the space to be that critical thinker of, how is this helping me? How is it hindering me? How is it challenging? So we want to create the opportunity for them to reflect. And I know for some of us in our courses, the thought of adding any more space to what is already a jam-packed semester can seem daunting, but it's one of those things that I highly encourage you to think through. How can I do that? And then last, application. We want to, after all we've gone through this process, we want to challenge students to apply their insights and AI-enhanced knowledge to solve those real-world problems creatively. We have new problems that are coming up in our world, and we want to be able to scaffold and support our students that are going to be that next generation to solve those problems creatively. And this is where it's going to be tough for some instructors to swallow, is all assignments are now AI assignments. It is impossible to create an assignment that is completely AI proof. We're going to talk about today how to create assessments that collaboratively work with AI, that force students to apply their critical thinking. But AI is so incredibly diverse and smart. You cannot create an AI-proof assignment. It's just not possible unless you're going back to the archaic blue book, write everything down, no electronics at all. That is not something that's going to prepare them for the future. So we won't engage in that right now, but I just want everybody to acknowledge and understand that it is not possible to create an AI-proof assignment. So we have to really think about how do we integrate AI literacy into what we do? How do we help involve and support students in getting those AI terms, those limitations, everything that we're going to be, that we've talked about. And I think I've covered actually all this on the other slide. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward for the sake of time. Okay, because the next ones are where we usually get a lot of robust conversation and disagreements. So there is a whole lot of conversation that I've been part of about AI detection tools. And one of the base things to start thinking about is AI detection tools are a business model. Almost every single platform that comes out with an AI detection tool has also come out with an AI detection tool beater. So Chegg, I can't remember something leaks. There's 3 more that have both AI detection software for faculty that they're selling to schools and selling to faculty, and they also have AI detection beating software that they're selling to students. So this seems like a huge conflict of interest. So that in itself should be something that makes you go, maybe this isn't quite as ethical as I thought it. But let's talk about some of the statistics as well. So in spring 2023, and I have the citation. I have the research citations for all of this if you want it, or you can read the book because this is where it's all coming from. Spring 2023, 51% of students said they were using AI. by fall 2023, 75% of students said they use AI. And this is at colleges that had a policy against AI use. 75% that they would, even though they know it's dishonest and they know that faculty have forbade them from using it, 75% of students will still use it because they know it's advantageous to their education and their knowing. So what about all of these AI detectors? All of them have very high, what I consider very high false positive rates. Turnitin was one of the big ones because we all trust Turnitin. So when they first came out, they said, oh, there's only a 1% false positive rate. By the next semester, fall 2023, they had revised that false positive rate to confirm and say it is now at a 4%. And this is what led to a lot of the big universities from dropping the Turnitin AI detector, because this is just what they had confirmed and told themselves, is that 4% false positive rate. So one of the things that we really have to think about as instructors is, what are we comfortable with in those false positive rates? Oh, and here is the how those institutions responded. I knew I had a slide that talked about it. So when Turnitin came out with, okay, we revised to our 4% false positive rates, Vanderbilt, Michigan State, and there was one more big one that discontinued their software. And the reasons that they give is there are these legal and ethical implications for falsely accusing students of cheating. That is something that legally a student can take legal action against the university or the instructor. One of the biggest concerns is when using AI detection tools is we are not giving students aren't giving their permission to load their intellectual property into an outside platform. And those outside platforms are using those students' papers in a way that they have not given permission for us to be able to use it in that way. So before you use AI detection tools, here's some of the things that I really want you to think about, because we've talked about those false positive rates. So given what we know about the student's mental health crisis and the damage that can be caused by false accusations, even if you are so sure that this has to be an AI generated tool, under what circumstances is it ethical to use tools that have a record of false positive? How many false positives are too many? At 4%, you think, oh, that's safe. Is 5%? Is 6%? Is 10%? Is 12%? What is your comfort level on the percentage of false positives that you would be able to say this is a good tool? And what about the collateral damage? What about those students that do fall in those false positives that you've then kicked out of the university, had a plagiarism report? Is that worth it for those other students that did use it and didn't fall in that false positive? And then we know that AI is integrated into almost everything that we do, Grammarly, almost everything. It's now integrated into PowerPoint. Everything has AI integrated into it. What percentage would you consider a student work to have too much AI? Is it 1%? Is it 2%? And how do you decide that if they've used it and then modified it, changed some words, cut and pasted, changed some words again, used from this AI? What is the percentage that you would feel comfortable saying this is too much AI generated? So those are some of the things that you have to sit down. If you are using those AI detection tools, what are you comfortable with? Because every AI tool has a false positive rate. Some are up to 50%, especially for students that are second language learners. The false positive rate drastically increases. So those are really things that you want to think through before you engage in. And of course, you are loading students' work without their permission into a platform that has not disclosed to you what they're going to be using without student work. And I guarantee they're using it to train other AI detection softwares that they can then sell to universities for a profit. So you have to decide if you're okay with that happening without students' permission. Okay, that usually incites a lot of conversations. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns about that part of it?
I just want to say that I have not been using detection tools at all because I just think it's more trouble than it's worth. But what I do find helpful is a preliminary sample of the student's work. And because, of course, I'm in English and we're working on, writing, getting a sample of their basic writing at the very beginning of the semester by just having them do a free write that we save in a file so that we have a reference for the kind of language and the voice that they have on the screen, on the page, um, gives me some kind of a basal something to judge against. And then I will say this summer I had that experience. I had a student who repeatedly was using another generator to answer the discussion board questions, and it was clearly not his work, and it was clearly not on task, on topic, on target. And each time I called him on it and said, you didn't answer this, and you didn't quote from the text, and can you explain what you meant by that? And he just could not engage. He could not engage. He did not engage. And by the end of the class, I had to work with him specifically on a paper and do a step-by-step process with him to get him to get through the points to pass the criteria for the paper, which he was able to do barely. But at no point did I accuse him of using AI because it just was pointless. It was clear that it wasn't his work and he
Mhm.
couldn't explain it. So I don't know. I think we give ourselves a lot of extra work when we try and say, I gotcha.
Mhm.
I mean, I have enough to do already. We have enough to do already. I am totally on board with the process concept here that it is a tool and we are going to have to figure out ways to incorporate that in our teaching and so that it's useful to them and to us and not give up the end goal, which is making them critical thinkers who can respond with their own tools.
Yep.
So anyway,
And
that's me going off.
no, that's perfect. And when we talk about customization in just a second, creating that initial pre-write sample can allow you as the instructor to leverage AI to create some customizable support for those students. You want to disclose to them this is one of the ways that I'm going to use it, but they can see you critically using it and critically thinking through what the ethics of it are. So I always appreciate your insight, Deb. Thank you. All right, so let's look at some tips and tricks for creating assessments. And this is one of my favorite quotes now that I came across in the book, because to me, it really helped me to articulate well how we can embrace this new future, because it's freaky to me. I'm an early childhood person, and I'm always going to be more embracing of let's get dirty, let's paint with our hands, let's eat some mud instead of using technology. But we need to stand on the shoulders of this. And so this is a quote by Susan, I should have practiced saying the last name, D'Agostino. Anyway, you can read it right there. But we surpass the AI by standing on its shoulders. You need to ask, how is it possibly incomplete? And that's where our critical thinking comes, because when you start playing with it, you think, oh my goodness, there are so many things that can do. Where are the gaps that me as a human need to fill in? And it's our responsibility to help our students see that, because right now, for many of them, it's the answer to everything. Because without that critical and discerning eye, it appears that it answers the question so completely when it really doesn't. And we know because of our discipline expertise, but we need to support them in finding out where we can use AI in that collaboration. Okay, so let's get down to what you all are probably waiting for and did not want that whole lecture of how to create good assignments, but I couldn't help it. Fire me as the assessment coordinator if you don't want that, but that's just how it's going to be. All right, so one of the easiest way to do it, quick fixes, quick helps. It's not going to solve all the problems by any stretch of the imaginations, but to make it local, unique, personal, and recent. A lot of the free LLMs out there are trained with old data, and so it doesn't have that recent. It's trained by huge information. So it doesn't have that local, and it certainly doesn't have that unique and personal. So for any assignments that you can add just very little pieces to make a student have to critically think, and even if it spit out an entire answer, for them to be forced to take the time to modify it and edit it, critically read and think how I can put my local, personal, unique aspects on there, is going to make the assignment less 100% AI, more forcing them. So a couple of suggestions are: apply W to a specific local problem or context. So apply whatever it might be. Physics, figure out how do they apply physics to a very local specific, and make that part of the grade. How do you fix this local and specific problem that they are addressing it very specifically? Oh, another typo. I thought I got them all. Describe how you won. Oh, no, that wasn't typo. Describe how you won or lost an argument at Thanksgiving or whatever holiday. That's that critical thinking. They're having to describe a process. They're having to describe that argumentation back and forth. Provide examples of how X relates to your own experience. So if you're talking about a book, an experience of a character, have them describe how it relates. There's those comparing and contrasting. Those are some higher order thinkings that they're having to be personal. And you can tell them, use examples of local landmarks in your analysis. Those are those little things that can sneak in, that if they just have it generated by AI, they don't get points for it because they haven't met the criterion. You don't have to run it, just like Deb was saying, through an AI detection software because they haven't met the criterion. Describe how Z might enhance your passion. So describe how learning about this might enhance your particular unique passions. Have them make sure to tie it back to what they feel personally passionate about. Propose innovations to your core curriculum that reflect their favorite idea from this class. Most of our students can find one specific thing that they enjoyed about the class. Have them write, how would you change the class to focus more on that thing that you loved? Critical thinking. Identify 3 distinct passions of yours and apply them to a problem related to the course that's a unique and personal what they're passionate about. If you could create a utopia, what lesson from your life would guide you and what would it look like? So that's not going to fit every discipline, but it's a way for them to think creatively and critically about everything about life. Attributions and citations. This is one of the easiest ways to really force students to do some deep digging into what AI can produce. But you can ask them to produce a paper on a topic, whatever it might be, and tell them, use AI that includes at least 20 quotations and citations from recent research in academic journals. Their job is to verify all the citations that they must actually exist and say what AI says they say. So they can use AI, but they're having to regurgitate, what does AI say about these citations? Tell them that they can use AI tools such as ChatGPT or Research Rabbit, which are 2 ways that are two AI resources better at research and citations than GPT. Tell them if you are unable to locate a citation or discover a factual inaccuracy, they must locate a true source or revise the claim. Your reference list should cite all of the original citations and your corrected versions. This is a lot of extra steps that they have to do, but it's forcing them to go and critically think about those citations. And you're acknowledging and saying, hey, use this, but it allows them to see the limitations of, oh my goodness, I just turned in a paper last semester that had 30 bad citations. Look at how bad these are. So it's giving them the opportunity to really see what the limitations are. I was working on a grant last weekend and I had ChatGPT give me citations. Only one of them was actually accurate and it sounded so good. This is a perfect research article. Couldn't find a stinking thing anywhere. So I had to go find my own. So those are the critical thinking, real world applications that our students need to be able to think about and do. All right, sorting and defining quality. And here's where a lot of these are AI prompts. So if you guys say, hey, stop reading it to me, then let me know. But I'm just going to read it to you so we can facilitate conversation if we need to. So anyway, sorting and defining quality. AI can create bad or negative examples that students can evaluate or fix. Again, that critical thinking, looking at what's wrong and trying to fix it, is a higher order thinking skill. If you fear students will just ask AI to do it for them, here's an assignment that can focus students on recognition of analytical skills. I really love this assignment. So ask an AI, this is you telling students as an assignment, ask an AI to produce bad, average, and good responses. Export the conversation and comment on where and why. So again, that specific critical thinking, not just this is a good one, but where and why each is good, each is average or bad. Then have them create a rubric that delineates the components and qualities of each level. The students will ultimately be responsible for the output, so they need to be able to recognize the good and the bad. And of course, they can use AI to create the rubric, but they're having to match it up to the example that they've provided. Does providing AI with this rubric make the 3 examples more different? So did it revise? They're having to compare and contrast that original good, bad, and average example to what was produced after the rubric. Another form of critical thinking and analytical, the ability to analyze. Have them create better models based on that of good, bad, and average. With the AI production that students have created. Again, we're getting to that core critical thinking skill, which is going to be important in almost in every single thing, in every single one of our disciplines. Okay, so what about presentations? And I used to be very opposed to presentations for a number of reasons in my online classes, but as I'm starting to do more and more research, I'm starting to think about the validity. And the presentation doesn't need to be I'm standing in front and talking about it, but creating a presentation style. When employers are complaining about our lack of communication skills in our graduates, it's not just written skills. It's definitely something that we want to support, but it's also our verbal presentations that are lacking for our students. The research is, I'm looking at Deb, because origins in speech pathology, the research that's coming about how many decreased verbal interactions our children have and the impact on their social and emotional growth is really putting a lot of, to me, more emphasis on our ability as a training ground to help enforce the give and take in that presentation and that communication that needs to happen to be able to clearly and better articulate what our thoughts are. So have them do that in their class, figure out a way to integrate it, and it helps to make the assignments not AI proof, but AI collaborative. So have them create a slide outline, but be sure to use AI, create a slide outline, but be sure to check all the information. So tell them, utilize this to create your outline. Ask your AI for different ways to tell the story. Get suggestions for images and prepare slides with no more than 6 words on each slide. And these are all prompts that students can use to get to that presentation that you might have them give. You will need to present without notes. Remember, the gist is more pervasive than a script. Ask your AI to anticipate questions you might receive and prepare responses. This is such a really cool tool, that last part of it, to ask the AI to help the student present. Now with ChatGPT, and there's a ton of other ones that allow you to do a verbal give and take, students can practice with AI giving their presentations, and the AI can say, here are some questions you might have, and they can give their responses and critique it and allow the students to refine their presentation. And you can have them produce the transcript and submit that as proof of the assessment or part of the assessment if you want. How are we doing on questions, Lori? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sort of had a question. Can you go back to the other slide?
Mm-hmm.
So you were saying have them use AI to create the slide outline,
Mm-hmm.
but they would input sort of like what you did. They would input the information and check it.
Yep.
To have them. Okay. And you
Yep.
were saying that you were doing this on your online classes?
After doing this research and reading the book, it's something that I'm going to integrate, because before I was opposed to it, but I thought, and it doesn't have to be where it's a video on it, because a lot of my students, I don't want to force them into that, but verbally they can do that. You can have them verbally do it for the free version of Padlet and have create the presentation, and that has an AI integrated into it. So almost every free tool out there has an AI element integrated into it. The presentation software that I'm using for this, Gamma, you've got 30 free slides that you can create. They just can jump around from different AI tools. And learning how to use a new piece of free AI technology is in itself a valuable tool. Think about how many of us get so frustrated having to learn a new technology, but how much we're stretched every time that we have to and apply those critical thinking skills. Okay. Video and podcast. I thought this was super fun. Ask students to make an unboxing video. I think they're the stupidest videos out there because you're literally watching people unbox, but apparently it's a big thing on YouTube. But you can have your students do that and fill the box with things that allows you, the student, to explain your concept. So this is something that they're familiar with. It's, they see on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, the platform is, but tell them, okay, you're going to explain a concept to me. Fill the box with that, unbox it and explain it just like you see. And that's a way they can explain that concept, especially a more complex, maybe science concept or whatever it might be, or pretend the box is from a character in your story. So they would have to understand that character through reading, through analysis, through conversations. And now they've created a box that has to do with the character, and they have to unbox it live in the presentation and talk through it. So that's an analysis, a character analysis. I'm sure that English folks have people do, but they're doing it in a different type of way. It's that different type of communication. I can't believe it's already 4:12. I want to have time to talk. So graphic novels, super fun way to help describe a concept. You can create a graphic novel from a perspective of somebody in history. One of the examples they use in the book is they created a graphic novel on the progression of how the baton, I know there's the name for it, for the orchestra conductor uses, whatever that thing is, but they created a graphic novel on the progression and history of that. An AI Comic Factory, I guess, is a really cool tool to create free graphic novels. And I thought, how fun is that? I know my youngest daughter is into the graphic novel. So what a fun way to be able to demonstrate knowledge of a concept in a modality that students could find fun and entertaining. And there's free AI out there to do that. Visual and video demonstrations. Free AI tools, Midjourney, Dream Studio, Stable Diffusion, and DALL-E. By the way, if you didn't know, DALL-E is based off of Salvador Dali's different painting style. I didn't realize that. And then Synthesia and Capwing and Pika do this with videos, but have them develop a concept map of any concept that's in your class, visualization, video, infographic, diagram that explains how different concepts in your course relate. That's a really hard skill to be able to do. So if you have a complicated concept, they might use AI to help them explain it, but then they have to develop that concept map and then a visual or video demonstration describing and explaining how it talks about. Modify the image. You can give them an image to demonstrate whatever concept it is. Transform the equation or molecular structures provided into a video that demonstrate the reaction of how bonds are broken and formed. Oh, let's typo again. And formed. See, these are the things like I can't draw. I don't think of myself as a creative person, but I can go into AI and modify it and manipulate it and create something that's super creative. When my teachers would have to say, go and do this fun creative thing, like, okay, here's my stick figures, yay. But now with AI, every student has the opportunity to take all of these images that less creative people, Lori can't relate because she's a wonderful artist, but us less creative people that can see it in our head, I can use AI to make that a reality. And that's super exciting. Teach an AI, because you can train an AI to paint like Salvador Dali, create a new image and describe what stylistic elements are in that visible. Fun art activity. Reimagine this metaphor, story, play, opera in a new setting that adds relevant layers of meaning to a new audience, and then generate animation to demonstrate. So having to understand, okay, what is this new audience? What would they like? Explain a controversy with a video that allows you to create a new visual analogy. Invent a person and create an image or video that tells a historically accurate story about them. So if I'm a history teacher and I'm trying to think about, okay, I want them to understand what life is like in the 1800s, they can invent a person and create a story using all of these different AI tools to accurately tell a story about them. And if they says they wear glasses and it's before they were invented, then that's not applying the knowledge that they gained in the class. Questions? Oh, good, because we don't have time yet. Game design. We've all seen the research about how gamifying our classes helps students to learn things. But I know for me, I don't have the time to gamify everything. That's way too hard. I'm not a programmer, blah, 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 whatever it is. But they have so much AI out there that you don't have to be a programmer for students to gamify what you've created. So you can have them design a simple video game to help neurodivergent children learn friend-making behaviors. And for me, in my early childhood class, I thought, oh my goodness, this is so perfect, because what are the skills that they need to demonstrate in that? They have to know, okay, first of all, what are the types of learning strategies that are appropriate for neurodivergent children. They have to know what that term means. And they also have to know what are the different social and emotional milestones that a child of X stage will have in order to make friends. So for me in early childhood, when I read that, I thought, oh, that's a great way to assess all these different skills. Create a game that requires players to make use of, something, whatever it might be. These are great for when students are trying to figure out how they might use a concept you are teaching them. So I'm sure we've all heard students say, I'm never going to use this. Make a game that shows me how you can use this concept. And they're going to go to AI and go, how do I use this concept in the real world? And the AI is going to tell them, you can use it this way. They take that and they make a game. They've already spent more time interacting with that concept than they probably otherwise would have. Build a game that simulates the trade-offs in the life history strategies of organism Y. I don't even know what that means. I just copy it from the book, but for sciencey people, I wanted to put there because they probably get what that meant. Somebody put it in the chat, what in the world that was saying. I meant to AI it so I could have an example, but I thought I need a good science example, and that's what they put in there. Questions?
Now I'm just starting to sort of like brainstorm a little bit of, different things to do. And I'm curious if other people are kind of brainstorming too, like what they could do in their classes using AI and stuff. So anyway, and I also put a little link of a survey in there. So please copy it and take that later for people.
Okay. Okay, I've only got 4 more slides, so I'm going to go super fast through them. Sorry, guys, we talked too much about foundations. Physical sources. Ask students to work with a unique source or physical manuscript. AI is really good at analyzing data if it's uploaded, but it really has a hard time analyzing singular text. What it is culling from is what other people say about the text. So if you have them analyze Hamlet, if you tell AI to analyze Hamlet, they're not analyzing Hamlet. What they're doing is they're curating all of what everybody else has said about Hamlet. So if you want students to analyze something, find something that's unique that nobody else has talked about. This could be something that you wrote that have never published, something that you find in some random place, a children's book that's never been talked about. Have them analyze that text that AI is gonna have a very difficult time finding accurate information about. Discussion boards, because we all know this is the bane of our existence when students copy and paste this. And again, there is no AI-proof assignment, but how can we make it more AI friendly? Keep prompts meaningful and personally relevant. So for me in my fully online classes, I've changed discussion boards I title them community building experiences. And this is where students are encouraged to, let's just talk about the content. They're not required, but I still have about 50% of students that really love to do it because let's talk about the content that we've discussed. Aim to encourage the exchange of ideas and impromptu discussions. So Don't make it so formulaic. We're so used to saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then respond to 2 people. Those are so easy to plug into an AI and get the response. Be transparent in your why. Why are you having them do the discussion board? And if you say because they're required to have 2 different forms of regular and substantive interaction, that is so not the good reason to have a discussion board. Find the reason why you want students to interact. Why is it important that they discuss this content? Is it because the discussion will allow them to know the subject more and articulate it better? Have varied submission types. Change your discussion boards up. Have some be short posts, some be personal stories, some be current events, some be examples from class, some be images, photo captions, and videos. I love using Padlet for all of my discussion boards because it allows me to do all of these different things. It is worth it for me. I pay for the $100 a year because I like it for every single discussion board, and it is a fantastic tool. So there's my plugin. All right, we can do this. 8 more minutes. Explain your thinking. In this AI era, we need to be explicit in asking students to explain their thinking, their research methods, and their writing process. It's not just about the product. We want to get them down into explaining their process, which means that we have to find a way to make it so we can provide that customized feedback to students. And that's another information for another session on how we can use AI to provide that customized feedback. But for students, we want to get them used to explaining that thinking and that reasoning and that analysis and the critiquing of the AIs themselves. If you're in a class, I am not saying having them handwrite things in class because we do want to be cognizant of different processing, but have students come in with a handwritten note about whatever it is, summarizing the reading. You want it to be on a note card, what they thought about the video that you have them watch. Even if they are transcribing it word for word from an AI, the process of reading it and writing it down provides opportunity for them to input that information. And then you can have them discuss what they have on their card. It's still more analysis than they probably would have done otherwise. Okay. And customization. Here is one of the really cool things about AI. And if you haven't used it for this as an instructor, I highly encourage you to use it for this context. We can customize things at scale. We can make everything in our class personable to our students. This is what marketing has discovered decades ago, that we are much more likely to look at something that says, hey, Lori, did you know, blah, 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 blah. It is research shown that that catches our attention. We can do that with AI by customizing our assignments. Build alternatives. I don't know why I put 3 in there. Build alternative versions of problem sets for students majoring in whatever you wanted to say. Say, here, can you create a physics exam for students that are majoring in education? Can you create a physics exam for students that are majoring in, well, they wouldn't be taking physics if they were majoring in education, but you get what you can customize those problem sets for students. And again, just like we talked about prompt engineering, you want to make sure and be very specific on what it's creating. You can have them transform the midterm into a series of smaller mastery assessments that are tailored for individual students. And just like when Deb was saying, getting a writing sample early on from students with their permission, you can plug that into an AI and all of the different writing samples and say, I want you to create a customized midterm for every student that meets them where they are, but scaffolds them to that mastery level to help them get to that goal. AI can do that for you. We know that that's the best way students learn, and AI can do that and create those customizable assessments, because if the assessments are too hard and students aren't ready for them, that's another reason why they'll directly go to AI, because it's easier for them than feeling that discomfort of that critical thinking. The last customization, based upon the draft project ideas, provide individual resources, dilemmas, problems, examples for every student. So you can have them do a pre-write or do a pre-analysis or do a pre-something for a project. plug that into AI and say, provide individual resources, dilemmas, problems, whatever it might be, that can guide that student in an individual point of interest that they might have. Okay, so what does the future look like? Just in case you weren't scared and freaked out and want to retire right now. Right now, we're in the adapting to AI integration in education. We are in the totally freaked out. I don't want to do this anymore. What is my savings right now so I can just go live on an island? That's where we are right now. What's coming up is that we are going to get to that widespread adoption of AI enhanced learning tools. Right now, we're in that explosion. It's probably going to whittle down and be more tools that actually work versus, hey, I'm going to create something with AI. But AI literacy is going to be a core competency our students must be able to have when they leave us. It is something that every field that they're going to go into is going to be required for some sort of AI literacy. What is the long term? We're looking at seamless human AI collaboration. All those sci-fi films that we've seen that we thought were way in the future, it is what our future is. NASA has said that rocket ships, that's not the right term, things that go into space designed by AI are lighter and more stable than ones designed by humans, but it has to be that interaction. So using AI is something that we're going to have to collaborate with. I finished. All right. So now, any questions, thoughts, things you want to share in 4 minutes? Sorry, I meant to finish earlier.
I had a question with the when you were talking about some of the ideas like unboxing a character or something like that. And I think you were talking about using one of the AI tools. Which AI tools were you thinking of?
Well, that was more for they could plug it into any like ChatGPT, do that character analysis. I mean, they could even say, my instructor's having me unbox this character. What kind of things should I put in there? And they can have that conversation. I mean, that's the thing, but they still have to then articulate that out in a live presentation. Because if they can't find those things to unbox, they're going to have to do an exchange with the AI to see, okay, well, I don't have a shoe from 1950 or 1800s. What can I do instead? That's a critical thinking of what that character would have to use. They have to apply, oh, wait, I can't get a tennis shoe because this is a character from Wuthering Heights and they don't have tennis shoes. So what can I go and find? And they'll have to learn history and analysis just by that interaction.
So you're talking more about using AI as and evaluating it as a learning process.
Yeah. Yeah. And then them demonstrating their knowledge through the unboxing and through the presentation.
Well, and then it might be interesting to have them kind of do it first and then go into AI and say, this is what I found. What else can you add to it? And then they would do the presentation of it.
Yep, absolutely. And have them as part of their submission. Tell me how you used AI in this. I'm excited to see what was the iterative process you did to come to what you put in your box, because we really want to start making it okay for them to use it so they don't feel like it's this thing they have to do under the rug, but us as instructors guide them to, how do we use this ethically? What are the ways that you should be using it? What are the ways I want you to critically think? And why is that critical thinking so important for you, your future? We have jobs. We've been there. I'm doing this for you because I want you to be a successful critical thinker. We have to find ways to instill that, the importance of that for our students. Any other questions? Well,
You're muted, Deb.
I just find it very energizing. I'm just tickled, I was excited about it a year ago, and then the gentleman that presented for us opening day, I've just followed their work, and I'm excited to see how you have gone forward with this, Amanda. And it's a lot less scary, but it is going to change pedagogical practices across the board, and people who aren't willing to be flexible are just going to have a really hard time with it. So as much as it's here and it's coming and it's going to be here sooner than everybody's prepared for, it's a cultural shift, and it's just going to take time for people to dip their toes in and be less freaked out. But it's a cool bunch of tools, that's for sure. And I will have to say, even, just after last night and just the whole prompt engineering thing, I got very jazzed and just went into both my tutor training classes and I redid all of the essay prompts, and I am so tickled that they're
And
just
quickly too, it
yes,
took you
yeah,
one
and,
evening
and
to
then
do
all
it.
you have to do is just edit it, and they just look fresher and they're more concise. And so I feel better about having interacted and gotten something specific done. So thanks.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the feedback we like.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are at time, so I'm sure Lori will be posting everything. And
Yeah, and for those who are at other campuses, I am sending, if you're at Fresno City, I'm sending Susie the links to the videos so that she posts them on YouTube. And then I might they have like a Fresno City. If you're at Reedley, I'm posting them on the intranet, and I'll make sure it's clear where. It's all in the professional development. And if you're from another campus, I think if I don't know, Susie, tell me if this is good or bad, but maybe if I just send them to the YouTube place, that might be the best way to do it if you're from Madera or Clovis.
Absolutely. YouTube's open for anybody.
Yeah, and she has great stuff on there too that I might go through. So anyhow, thank you so much, Amanda, and everyone else for coming. And we have many more workshops and lots of interesting topics. So we will see you soon.
bye, everybody.